to the house, the one they talking about, word of mouth. The boxing playhouse, without a doubt. All the latest and greatest boxing news, that's what it's all about.
Welcome, everybody. This is Boxing Playhouse After Dark series. And I'm Sakura A, and I got Emilio Santana and Danny Santiago with me tonight. What's up, guys?
Hey, what's up, Sakura?
Oh, I'm so excited. I mean, you know, this is one of my media idols, and I just I'm bursting out of the scenes that he would agree to spend time with us tonight. Danny, do you have any fun memories of Al Bernstein?
Well, he's one of my favorites. I had the honor and first and foremost, I had the honor and privilege to hang out with him a time or two in my gym in Ocala, Florida, when he came down to do a piece on Ricardo Mayorga. And kind of good and bad, he commentated one of my fights when I fought Tampa's own Tava, and he did the blow by blow on my fight there. So yeah, he's a pretty cool cat. I kind of look up to him. You know, he's to me, he sets the standards on what to be and how to be a color commentator and how to go about approaching the business.
Yes, and what I also like is that now that he's established and he's well known and he's one of the best at what he does, that he can now speak out on things, that are in our society that's just not right, and he does that quite often. And I just want to say on that note that we need to send some prayers to the individuals and the families that were affected from the shooting in Buffalo last week. And, just to say, when is it going to stop? I don't know. But, I mean, I'm praying for those families that lost their loved ones this weekend. You know, it just kind of pissed me off because I'm like, it's real easy for you to go in a supermarket and pick out some elderly women, some elderly Black people and shoot them. No, if you want to kill up some Black folks like you say you do, you need to stick to people that's your age and, go to where they hang out. Let's see how big and bad you're going to be then. So, I mean, it's just pathetic. Anytime seniors are affected, I just feel like it's just so sad and such a disgrace to the person to target people that's elderly, that's sick. Danny, you got any other words?
Well, it goes back to some of the things that go on in life. I'm showing my age. I'm 49, pushing 50, right?
Right.
And back in my time, I dealt with some of the things that society's dealing with now, right? And how we handle things were these.
Right.
It's like nowadays people, whether it comes to racial issues or whatever. I mean, look, I've dealt with that in my life as well. And the way I handled it, we threw the hands and call it a day. It's like people are afraid to get their butt kicked, so they grab a weapon and they do something, that's cowardly. It's totally cowardly. And we definitely need to come together. And I don't know if there's ever going to be a solution, but there has to be some type of progress where we move in the right direction and start. I don't want this to be a fad. This is happening too frequent now. This is it's ridiculous. It's disgusting.
Yeah,
breaks my heart.
Emilio?
Yeah, I like what Danny said. You fight and live another day. That's how it was back in the day. Dudes fought and next day, you live another day. A lot of times you make peace and be cool with one another. I hope it don't be a trend. Sometimes you see these kind of situations and then there's another crazy dude out there somewhere. Oh, hey, I'm gonna outdo this here. Thinking right now, I'm plotting. I'm gonna go somewhere and outdo what this dude did. So it's crazy, man. It's making it where a lot of people, are being afraid to even go to the grocery store, man. Movie theaters, you get into a point where nobody's gonna want to go out no more, because of crazy acts like what we just seen.
Well, you got the pandemic, and you got psychos like that, and right. I mean, at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is that we don't know this. I don't condone anything like this, but we have to look at things. We have to look at the bullying. We have to look at racism. We have to look at everything and just figure out what it is, because we're looked upon as the strongest nation in the world, but you don't hear things like this happen in other countries.
Right. That's very true.
I'm an American and I live in another country currently, but I love my country and we need to pull together, you know?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Everything you're saying is 100% truth. And like you guys say, if you want to pick on people your own age, pick on people that's healthy. Leave these senior citizens alone.
Just stop picking on people.
Period. If you got, I mean, yeah, they shouldn't be doing it at all. But I think it's an extra layer of cowardness.
Yeah.
You know, cowardliness to just, you know, target elderly senior citizens, basically. Wow. I mean, that's just so bad. And they doing it to Asians too now. It's just all across the board ignorance.
It's a shame, you know, all these years of racism, and you know, we still got this going on. You know, young people being recruited into these hate groups, and just crazy, man. To think, you know, we still dealing with this right now.
Right. And here's the other thing, guys. We got to start these hot topics, but I'm just gonna end it by saying that people at these schools and different things, when you start noticing someone is not acting correct and they're not doing things properly and they're talking about shooting up a bunch of people, you got to realize that these individuals need to be reported. And the families of people like that, they definitely need to start getting more involved. When your child says something off to you and you know it ain't right, don't breeze by it. Like, make it a teachable moment.
I noticed,
or else.
A lot of people have been wanting to homeschool their kids, you know, in recent years because of the shootings and different things going on with these kids in school. So,
right.
You know, like Danny said, man, I don't know if it's ever going to be a solution, but we could, you know, maybe we can work on some things. I don't know.
All right. So we're going ahead, and what we're going to do is we're going to have our special guest join us for our hot topics, because a lot of them have to do with fights that were on Showtime or about to be on Showtime. Right. I want to just go ahead and introduce the sportscaster of my dreams. He is a great boxing historian. I mean, just an amazing individual. Number one.
He's number one.
Yeah. So let's get Al Bernstein on with us.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Al.
Hey. Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know your time is limited, and I just want to say we appreciate you taking the time out to be with us tonight.
No problem at all. Good to see you.
Thanks. It's great to see you as usual. You know, we got Danny Santiago with us tonight.
Danny, how are you?
Hello, sir. How you doing? Pleasure to see you again.
I'm good. Which fight of yours did I call? I forgot which ones I called.
You called my fight when you called when I fought Tava, but you were in my gym in Ocala, Florida. When
I was there. Yeah, that was fun. That was a nice visit.
Ricardo Mayorga, when you got in the ring with Ricardo Mayorga, and it was for the Cotto fight.
That's right. I got in the ring with Mayorga, and he didn't understand that we were just kidding.
Oh, he thought it was real. Wow. Okay, so now what we wanted to talk about real quick is some hot topics. Basically, you know, this weekend, Undisputed, you were there live. An amazing fight between Castaño and Jermell Charlo. Oh my goodness. I mean, where do you put that at on the list of fights that you saw that was like really competitive?
Well, it was a great, you know, their first fight was excellent. And this fight was very similar, you know. The first, Jermell Charlo got off to a good start in this fight. And then Brian Castaño, for about 3 or 4 rounds, was able to do some really, really good work. But even all the while, Charlo was landing great counterpunches as well. But that fight was pretty close. I thought it was pretty close. So did Steve Farhood. They scored it after 6 rounds. A couple of the judges, I guess, didn't see it that way. But then Jermell Charlo, really, to his everlasting credit, kind of just retooled himself again and got back to boxing. And while he was boxing, he was still landing good power punches. And he did really well in those 3 rounds after that. And then, of course, scored the knockout. But it was a very exciting fight. The crowd was on its feet for a good portion of the fight. And it was great.
Yeah, go ahead.
Al, I had a question. I've been high on this guy Boots Ennis for the last 3 or 4 years, man. I've been telling people I think he's going to be the next boogeyman. I want to know what you feel about Boots.
Listen, here's the deal with him, right? Of course, he hasn't yet fought an upper echelon A-level fighter, but what he has done is fight several really good welterweights. He fought Thomas Delorme, who's a good fighter who went 10 rounds with Ugas, 10 rounds with Stanionis, and Jamal James. Did he beat Jamal James, or maybe he lost a close decision? But he goes the distance with these people. Bud Crawford knocked him out, but that took about 6 rounds. And Delorme had a few good moments in the fight. The thing that Ennis does that is so impressive is he takes fighters like Delorme, Lipinets, Custio Clayton, and he doesn't just beat them, he completely dominates them. And he, taking out Delorme and Custio Clayton in both 1 and then 2 rounds and knocking out Lipinets without Lipinets being able to really do that much. And the other thing that is important, I think, is 2 of those fighters, Delorme and Lipinets, though they're not monstrous punchers, landed very big right hands. And why is that important? We all ask ourselves, how does Boots Ennis take a punch? And the reason that's important, I think, is because if Boots Ennis is able to deal with the power of most welterweights, because he does have an aggressive style, and it does allow for him to be hit sometimes by the better fighters he fights. If he has a good enough chin and a good enough punch resistance against those top welterweights, I'm not sure I know how they beat him, because Ennis is a volume puncher. He's a power puncher. He fights lefty. He fights righty. It's going to be hard to win a decision against Boots Ennis. We're not even sure he's lost a round yet as a professional.
I like the way he trained too, Al. He got that old school training, chopping trees, flipping tires, and coming out of that Philadelphia gyms. He's a tough dude right there.
Yeah, his dad trains him, of course, and trained his brothers. And it is a very old school mentality, but he's just athletically, he's gifted. And beyond that, he has an amazing work ethic and a great ring IQ. So he is not going to be an easy man for any welterweight to beat. And by any welterweight, I think we can include even the upper echelon ones. That's why we're anxious to see him in against one of the top welterweights. I mean, of course, it's likely that neither Spence nor Crawford will be available to him, because we hope they're going to be fighting each other next. But any other welterweight that is near the top of the pack, we would all want to see him in against. And the one fight that screams out is the fight with Keith Thurman. I don't know if they missed that. For Keith Thurman, that's the last fight, I guess, you ever want to think about, but it's the fight that I think would make sense to boxing fans.
I wouldn't like that. I like Keith Thurman for that particular fight to change his name to No Time. No Time.
Yeah, it's not. That would not be an easy fight for him by any stretch, and it would absolutely give us a complete reading on Boots Ennis, because Keith Thurman's an excellent fighter. He performed well when he came back off his layoff. He did a good job in that fight, and so it would be the kind of fight that would make sense. But again, it's very hard to get some of these top welterweights in the ring with Jaron Ennis.
Oh, I bet. It's like fighting the next generation, someone that's younger, stronger, hungrier, that's a combination.
Yeah. And just really, really, really talented. And we have the welterweight division kind of divided into the 2 classes. We have the older welterweights led on top by Spence and Crawford, with the likes of Thurman in that group, and a few other, Ugas, of course. And then you go down to the younger ones like Virgil Ortiz and Boots Ennis, 2 examples. Stanionis, who is a very good fighter. People in
Ben.
that, in that age group that are feeling like they're the next guys. And we're going to find out.
He just added Conor Benn's name to the list too.
Yeah, Conor Ben.
Pardon? Conor Ben, right. I forgot Conor Ben. He's definitely somebody that you want to toss in there. And he's another one that we haven't, for whatever reason, we haven't seen him in against somebody, that's in the top 10. That is really a test.
Hey, Al, is it too late for Adrian Broner?
My pal Adrian, my buddy.
He loves you.
The problem is, I don't know what you do with Adrian Broner because he isn't really 147 pounder. He wants to fight at 140 if he can make 140. He's so inactive. He did not look impressive in his last fight. He got a decision. I think it was against Santiago, who went out the next time and lost. I forget, he lost to one of the Russell guys. And so he didn't look good in his last fight. And I'm not sure what weight class he can fight in. And I don't know who you match him with. Every single 140 pounder wants to fight Adrian Broner because they think they can beat him, and it would be a name
on their record
that would be a notch on their belt. So I don't know, what you do with him.
Yeah, and I don't think you're right, because I don't think he can make 140 anymore. Then he plays with the big boys. It's like he doesn't come on the winning side. So
if he can't fight at 140, 147 is really kind of a lost leader for him, I think.
Yeah.
And he's so inactive. And it's, he comes with all the baggage. So I don't know whether, I just don't know what they could do with him. Anybody could do with him. I know there was talk about him coming back and doing a fight on Showtime later this year, but then now that's cooled. And from what I hear, so I don't know what the story is with him.
Wow. Danny, you had a question?
Adrian is not consulting me about his future moves.
I don't think he's consulting himself. He's his worst enemy, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, like going back to the boots, there's very few times in my life that I look at things being a former fighter myself. To me, he's like a generational fighter. He does good things from both sides of the card, from both sides of the coin. He's good as a righty, good as a lefty. He's got speed. He's got great boxing acumen. His power is there. His speed is he's a well-balanced fighter. And then he trains old school. So, you never heard a lot of old school guys come up with excuses. They go to work, they put the work in, they usually come out with the victory. When it comes to Adrian Brown, it's a shame because he is a talent. I don't know where his discipline, where his mind is at, because I really do think I agree with Mr. Bernstein that his weight class isn't 147 pounds. He doesn't, build wise, he doesn't measure up to that weight class. He should fight at 140, maybe slack a little bit, cut a little bit on the steak and maybe some hamburgers and stuff, and diet a little bit, and go back down there, because at the end of the day, it's about making money, but doing it healthy. You don't want to go in there with some guy who's coming down from 160, 170 pounds when you're moving up, when it's not your weight class, Yeah,
he's in a precarious position because he, finding a person that makes a fight with him that makes sense is difficult. Everybody has said they want to fight him. Conor Ben wanted to fight him. Regis Prograis wanted to fight him. I mean, there's no lack of names that want to fight him, but I don't know that what he's going to do and what he can do to participate in. And I don't know. I guess the question is whether boxing fans and normally he's gotten really good ratings, though in his last fight not so much. But I don't know what the shelf life is with Adrian Broner. He's 32 now, and he's lost a bunch. He hasn't had a marquee win in a long time. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think he's had a win since going up to welterweight. Welterweight seems to like that's when we noticed a change with him.
Yeah, and before that he lost to Garcia, and it was there's just not a lot of glimmer when you look at what he's done in the recent past to say that there are a lot of great opportunities for him.
Hey Al, out of all these young up and coming fighters, is there anyone that particularly sticks out in your mind that you like?
Well, I like a lot of them. Boots Ennis we've talked about, of course. Virgil Ortiz, I think, is a very good young fighter and one in that weight class. I like. I know this might sound a little odd. I like Ryan Garcia. I know that Ryan Garcia's had his issues. I like that he's training with Joe Goosen now. I think that's a good thing. There's nothing against the people he's training before at all. It's just I think that's going to be a very good fit for him. And because of that, I think we might start seeing his potential. And the reason to like Ryan Garcia is simple. He's a puncher, right? I mean, he can punch, and that makes for interesting possible matchups. And of course, we're all hoping that we're going to see Kambosos and Devin Haney, and Devin Haney is another one that. Listen, all respect in the world to Devin Haney for going to Australia.
Yes.
Yeah. Now he's not going to have his main trainer. He's not going to maybe have his dad with him, who would be his secondary trainer.
Wow.
And he's still going to Australia to fight Kambosos in a hostile environment. So I don't know how it'll turn out. He may win, he may not. But
and that's a long trip
in the world, and he's a talented fighter.
It's a long trip. I've taken it. 39
yes,
hours.
It is a long one.
And oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was that long. But I just want to say that Haney gets there. I mean, how is he going to have better luck than Pacquiao? Pacquiao had a huge, he's megastar, and he didn't fare well in Australia. So I'm trying to figure out how. I mean, the only way possible for him to get a W, in my opinion, is if he actually knocks him out. And
in theory, the judges will be from different countries, and in theory, in quotes, it doesn't make a difference. It did make a difference for Pacquiao in the Horn fight, clearly, and whether that will be a major factor, they've already, because of these restrictions and the fact that two of his main training corps can't go with him, the odds have already started to be against him. So it's going to be tricky. It's going to be a difficult situation for him. He's a very poised fighter and a poised young man in many respects. And so I think that could aid him in this, but it's certainly, some disadvantages for sure for him to go through. You mentioned some of the other young fighters. Another one I love is Brandon Lee, who is a 140-pounder who is just starting to make his way. He's good friends with Boots Ennis, too. He's just starting to make his way into fighting a potential contender or the top 10 or 15. And he's a very talented young man. He was on the Showbox series. And he's a young fighter that I think, merits watching too.
That's Stevenson too, Al. Shakur Stevenson.
Oh, well, Shakur Stevenson. Yeah, he's young. I guess I don't think of him as because he's already a champion.
Oh, okay.
I was kind of limiting it.
He's a contender.
Of course. And he's so young. He's terrific. I mean,
that's a phenom.
I mean, boxer, he can punch. I think he has enough power to make a difference. And he's really, really, really good. So there are many potential fights for him if he moves up a weight class, or the weight division he's in now is a little thinner than it has been. But just above him are a bunch of fighters that he could face, and very talented.
Yeah, I can't wait till he gets to 135. I'm just very
Yeah.
I'm trying to be reserved because I know that there are going to be some moves up. People are
Yeah,
going
some of
to
the
be
people
making
from
that
there
division.
are potentially going to go up, but you hope that they stick around and that some of these people, get to fight each other. We've been doing it. We have seen a couple of fights like Lomachenko and Lopez, and we're seeing Kambosos and Haney, and the Kambosos Lopez fight, of course, turned out to be much better than a lot of people thought. So we're seeing some interesting lightweight fights now. Cruz is shown himself because of his good performance against Davis to be someone of note, and of course the WBC is mandating if they can get them in the ring, Cruz versus Ryan Garcia. Correct? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that would be a terrific fight. I love that fight.
I love that fight too, Al. But I want to see this Davis versus Ryan Garcia fight.
I would like to. Well, that would be the one you'd really, really want to see. But the Cruz fight is a good facsimile.
Yeah.
But yeah, Davis and Garcia, and of course they've tried to make that fight. That fight has been worked on a couple of times by both sides. They haven't quite gotten it done. And that's an interesting point you just spoke to. We kind of get almost, because sometimes it's so hard to make some of these fights. We lower our expectations, right? And so someone says, "Oh, Cruz could fight Garcia. Oh, it's pretty good." You kind of say, "All right, that's great," but it's not as good as the one we want to see. So, I think with Gervonta Davis in general, and of course he's fighting Rolly Romero coming up, a fight that happened primarily. Rolly Romero talked his way into this fight, and because it was a makeable fight, they're literally in the same gym, let alone the same promoter. But I think the world wants to see Gervonta Davis against one of these top lightweights in his next fight after that. And I think it's going to be incumbent upon him the people around him to make one of those fights.
Danny?
No, I'm in agreement. I think that when he was talking about the Rolly Romero and Tank Davis fight, just for some reason, when he came to my gym and he did the interview with Ricardo Mayorga, in many ways, Romero reminds me of Mayorga with their antics and their personality. I don't know if he shared the same opinion because he's been around both, no?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think there's an analogy to be made there.
Real quick, I wanted to ask you, being a New Yorker, what do you think about Berlanga?
Yeah, he's an interesting case, isn't he? His marketability outstrips where he's at in the sport. Obviously, he's marketable, and so that certain levels of fights are available to him, and he makes fights that people will watch and look at, and he's got a big fan base. But his level of fighting hasn't yet risen to that. Right. And so he's in a kind of a conundrum too, and a quandary, because he wants to continue to be in fights that get a lot of attention. But the question is he ready to face the level of competition that will make those fights appropriate? We're going to find out here in the next half year or year, because he's probably going to be forced to face them. And of course, he's already had some issues in fights that make people, queasy about where he's at.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to find out. It's very tough to say with him.
Al, I had a quick two-part question. The first question is, I want to know if you ever boxed before.
I know the answer. He has.
He has?
Yes.
I know the answer. He has.
Yeah, I did. I was there. I boxed in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago, and I boxed in the Park District gyms. The Park District had a boxing system, kind of like the Golden Gloves. And I lived on the south side of Chicago, and in a neighborhood where you were forced to occasionally get into a fight.
Right.
And so I said, you know what? I better learn how to. I think I better learn how to do this a little better. And I went to the gym, and I was a already a big boxing fan. So I said, I'm going to go in, and I had about 30 amateur fights, and it would, a lot of, some were novice, some were open. And, I had my moments, but I'm certainly was no threat to the great amateurs of the past. But I will say, having experience in the ring does give you at least a better understanding of A, how difficult it is, and B, how it's different. I mean, I played, like many people, I played a lot of different sports in high school. I played basketball and even a little football. I was a baseball player, played baseball in high school. And all those sports, boxing's totally different because the price you pay in boxing for a mistake or for something that doesn't go the way you want it to go is more dramatic than a mistake you make in those other sports, right? The only other sport that's even comparable is football. And so, in boxing, when things don't go your way, you get hit in the head or the body.
Yeah. That's why I have so much respect for him. And I know a lot about his history, Al Bernstein, because I look up to him as a commentator, right?
Yeah.
But he's one of the few, if not one of the last few in the color commentating business that has actually been punched in the face and gotten in the ring. So when he speaks and he gets into the referencing to different things in boxing, he speaks from experience. No matter how long ago it was, he strapped on those gloves and he's got in there. And he laced them up. He let the hands go, and he received a few shots. And he went the smarter route and got into color commentating. But
well, I was. It's funny. It's interesting. I knew I wasn't gonna go too far in boxing. I knew I could. I enjoyed fighting in the amateurs, and I did it. And other sports, baseball was the sport I thought if there was a sport that I was gonna move farther, and that was the one where I had the potential, and played briefly in college. But I, it was the experience of doing it and what it did for me as a person. Everybody has different reasons for boxing, right? Some people are just really good at it and they feel it can lead them to other things, and some love it for the competition. I think I felt like I had something to prove to myself to just be able to do it and get in and try to be good at it and have some good moments, which, I was lucky enough to do. It was really very fulfilling for me. And so, and like you say, it does help because then you understand when you're commentating on this that, a perfect example is we always say, we're sitting there commentating and saying, so-and-so should be moving to his left against his southpaw, and he's not doing it, right? Okay. But when you're in there, sometimes it's harder to do than you think. I went back. The funny thing is this was in the early 80s, mid 80s. I went back and a friend of mine in Lake Charles, Louisiana, Phil Daly, had this old time boxing thing where people were exhibitions, he said, well, come down here. It'll be great. You can be in one of the old timers boxing things and it'll help us draw people and whatever. So I said, okay. So I worked hard for a couple of months and got into what I thought was pretty decent shape, went down, and I was going to spar with Phil to just get myself back in track. And Phil's a lefty. And we boxed for, 6 or 7 rounds one day. And it took me till the 4th round of getting beat up to realize, oh my God, he's a lefty. And what am I constantly doing? I'm moving to my right. Right? And how many times had I sat there as a commentator and said, that guy should be moving to his left? Yeah. When you're in there, all of a sudden, you might not do it.
Girl.
Hey,
it's a different mindset. So, there's something to be said for it.
We're going to go to a few questions, but before we do that, I had one serious question I want to ask you, and I want to know, did you bring your gold cup?
Did I bring my what?
Your gold cup?
Oh, I don't have that.
We gotta send you a chalice for real. You gotta have a gold cup.
I gotta have a gold cup. How do I get those? Where am I gonna get those?
Well, let's ask these questions because we're not even going to get to why I really invited you on the show this time, which was because of the class, the Hall of Fame class for the International Boxing Hall of Fame and the International Boxing Hall of Fame. 3 classes together. I mean, in history, it's just unheard of to have those many amazing, talented boxers in one setting.
Right. Yeah, you're right. That when you go there, it's amazing when you look at all the people. It's astonishing to see the history of boxing in one place. But this would be ridiculous because you've got 3 classes of Hall of Famers going in, and it's just pretty amazing to see all those people in the same place. And it's going to be a real challenge for them to figure out how to do those ceremonies, with all the people that are there. And, hopefully they can. I'm actually participating in the Showbox is having a card in the Turning Stone 2 nights before. Unfortunately, I can't stay for the Hall of Fame. I have to leave. I have to get back to Vegas. Yeah. But I'm, that's going to be quite a group, and so many amazing fighters and other boxing personalities going in.
Well, I would have loved to have been to that Showbox card. We have one of our favorites on there, Ty Tomlin from Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
So we definitely.
Yeah, I'm gonna go there just to do interviews with the boxing the boxing greats that'll be on hand in the show. So it's going to be a lot of fun for me. They have their broadcast team, Raul Marquez, Brian Campbell, and Barry Tompkins. And so I'm just going to be there as a roving guy, interviewing.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's going to be a lot of fun.
It just seems so amazing to me. Like I think it's so historic, and I don't just that many talented inductees together at once. I mean, that's once in a lifetime. Hopefully we won't have to miss, classes due to another pandemic ever. Right. So it probably will never, ever happen again. Hopefully in our lifetime.
It's hard to believe, isn't it? What we've all experienced in the last several years, you can't even quantify it, right? Figure it out. And it's the far-reaching effects of it are so amazing. And this is just one smaller example, right?
Right.
Go ahead. Everyone has had to evolve. Everyone has had to evolve. The whole industry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Everything is, unfortunately, those things happen, but I think everybody's come out of it stronger, I believe,
I hope so. Yeah.
Hey, Al, real quick, I just want my second part of that question I was going to get to was.
We didn't get to that.
Yeah. What was, do you remember the first major fight that you commentated on that was televised?
Well, the first pay-per-view that I did was in 1983, and it was Roberto Duran and Marvin Hagler. And I was only in television for about 3 years. I was doing the Top Rank Boxing series. And because of that, Sal Marciano, who did the series with me, and I were selected to do the Hagler-Duran fight. And for me, only 3 years in television and getting to do that fight, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm sitting here. And then 2 years later, I was sitting there for Hearns Hagler at ringside. And,
wow.
Yeah. And it was so, at that point, I was like, how did I end up here? How did I land in this spot, to be sitting here doing this? And so it was pretty extraordinary. But the first really major one was Hagler and Duran.
Wow.
Okay. And we
got luckily, I was only 10 when I did that.
Okay.
Of course.
I wish that were true.
Just like I'm 10 right now, Al. Well, we have Dahlia Duran with us, and she said, all I remember when you used to broadcast my father's fight, the one and the only Hands of Stone. Thank you.
Yes, that's right.
Beautiful memories.
Yeah, that's right. I did do that. Oh my God, that was great.
Yes. And we're just going to ask this one question for one of our people because we know you do have to go. is Jeff, and he says he wants to know. Oh, wait a minute. This isn't even his question that he had earlier. Oh, here it is. Can you guys ask Al what is his favorite fight from his ESPN days?
Oh, yeah, that great series. Listen, it's going to be hard to pick one, but I'll mention a couple. From 1980 to I think 1996 or 7, I did that series, and we did. The most amazing thing is we did like 45 fights a year. It was almost every week. It was crazy. But one of the fights that people talk about a lot is a fight very early in the series between Caveman Lee and John Cicero, which was in Detroit, Michigan, at the 20 Grand Showroom. No air conditioning. It was August, and these two guys battled. One of the rounds was round 5, was in the most insane round of boxing I've ever seen. Cicero was just destroying Caveman Lee.
Wow.
And then Caveman Lee came back Lee was destroying Cicero. Then Cicero came back and was destroying Caveman Lee. And then he got tired and Caveman Lee knocked him out. And it was insane. It's just a crazy, crazy fight. And we had so many great fights and great fighters during that period that it's hard to pinpoint too many, but that's one where people talk about it a lot.
Al, you remember Frank the Animal Fletcher?
Oh my God, yeah, he was and he was in those early days of the series as well.
Right?
Yeah, he was. That was crazy. And when we'd go to do the anniversary shows, the 10th anniversary, the 15th anniversary, we'd go back and look at these fights, and they all kind of melded together after a while. You're like, oh my God, look at that fight! I forgot how great it was.
Them guys like Bobby Chairs and Lou Duva's crew back then. Was they on ESPN or USA? Al?
They were on the ESPN. Yeah,
it was
in Choteau, New Jersey.
Alex Ramos.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm gonna have to jump off with you here because I've got to depart. Take care.
Thank you so much, Al.
Bye. You can come back anytime. All right, so I knew he was going to run out of time, and he stayed with us a little longer than he actually had. So I just want to send a thank you to Al, and also thank him for some of the posts and the things that he speaks out on in our community, in our social environment. It's really amazing. I mean, he's just a 100% real, genuine boxing dude, who just happens to be excellent at his profession.
No, it was awesome. Like I said, every time I see him, I didn't really speak too much today. I wanted to listen to what you guys had to ask him and learn some things about him that I didn't ask in the past. But just somebody that that I've looked up into in the past, and he's given me his phone number and said if I ever had any questions, give him a call. And he's just a very personable guy, knowledgeable, and it was an honor to speak to him yet again.
So Danny, he called 2 of your fights?
Yes, he called 2 of my fights, and where I enjoyed it the most, because when he called my fights, I was in fight mode, so I didn't really pay attention with what everybody was talking about, what everybody was doing. But when he came to my gym in Florida, and I got to hang out with him, and right next to my gym there was a sandwich spot. We had something to eat and stuff, and it was just a cool time. It was just just a couple regular guys talking boxing.
Right.
I told him what my dreams were as far as pursuing a color commentating gig someday. And he said, yeah, work on your craft, give me a call and we'll do something together, and I'll never forget that. He's just been a really big influence in the paths of what I've gone in life, and he's awesome. He's just an awesome dude. I mean, he's not always going to tell you what you want to hear, but he's going to tell you what, if you ask him his opinion, he's going to give it to you. You may not like it. That's that's your problem. I know a couple guys that don't like the things that he says, but opinions. Everybody has one. He's an important individual, and his opinion matters. Not everyone does, but his does. And you could take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, exactly. I truly believe that. You know what? We didn't get through half the things that we were supposed to ask him. I mean, we didn't even get to the fight that's on Showtime this weekend. For what he has to say about Benavidez and Lemieux. We got two Davids versus each other. And I just want to know from you guys who you got.
I'll let Emilia go first.
Man, you know, I'm going with the Mexican monster, David Benavidez. I think he gonna stop Lemieux. You know, Lemieux done seen, you know, I think he done seen his best days. I haven't really seen him in the ring that much, to be honest, but I think David Benavidez is gonna break him down, Danny.
I think that's just too big of a tree to chop down. I mean, Benavidez, he's an enigma as well. We talked about that earlier. The guy's like 6 feet something tall.
Yeah.
He punches down, he punches real hard. He has a great boxing style, and he uses all his attributes to the best of his ability. I think, Lemieux, and I've been to Canada, I know some of his people. Some point in life, we all get a little long in the tooth. And I just think this may not be his day.
Right.
Well, I want to talk to you both guys about the fact that you'll never believe who's on the undercard of this particular Showtime card this weekend. And it is the return of Victor Ortiz.
What?
Yes. So, I mean, that is just amazing. I have Jeffrey here with us. And, the thing of it is he's returning. He's going to be on the card. It's going to be on the untelevised card, guys. So I don't know, how that works out for him. I'm a little disappointed that it is on the untelevised part, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm remembering that Ortiz used to give us some thrilling fights. He gave us a lot of competitive moments, drama. Like, he knew how to put on a good show, whether it was legal or not, So I'm kind of a little disappointed that we're not going to get to see it because it's not televised. But that's an addition to the card. Anybody else have any thoughts on Victor Ortiz returning to the ring?
Who is he fighting? I mean,
it's someone that basically he has like a 20-19 record, guys. I'm trying to think. So I think this is more of like a tune-up type fight, or trying to get back into the boxing ring and get some rounds in.
I forgot who he fought last.
Well, you see, like one of my relatives is on. His name is Nicholas Sanchez, right? And he's grown up in boxing with me his whole life. I agree with something he just said. That he said, he's lost his last few fights. Hence the drop off. And sometimes he's got to step in the back, and they got to let him rebuild his maybe confidence, his name, a little bit of his swag again. Maybe not being that limelight. Maybe fight on that big stage, but not being that limelight, and have that illumination on him, and just let him get his feet wet again. I don't know what he does. I don't know what he's been doing. I don't know what he's been training, but he's obviously making a comeback here, and it's probably a little bit better for him to be in the limelight a little bit. Be on a big show, but not have that bright shining light on him, and that way he can get things back on track. That's what I think I would do if I was his manager or trainer.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, you gotta get some rounds in. That's it. Okay, so while we're out on these subjects, we also have Deontay Wilder receiving a bronze statue from his city, his hometown of Tuscaloosa. Is that how you say it?
Tuscaloosa, yes.
Yes, he has. They have decided to honor him with this statue. I mean, and it does look like his likeness. It's just, they made it bronze, just like his name, Bronze Bomber. And a lot of people are up in arms about it, saying he doesn't deserve a statue. I mean, this is somebody that put Tuscaloosa on the map. Why doesn't he deserve it? It's where his home city. That's his hometown.
That is his hometown. He's put it on the map. I've actually been to his gym. I've taken some guys to spar there. He had a exact statue of him made of whatever material it was. It wasn't bronze, but I think it's well deserved. I mean, the truth of the matter is that he put that little town or that little city on the map, and that's what it's known for. Let's be honest,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was in an amazing trilogy, and knocked out a lot of talent at heavyweight, and stayed on top for a very long time too. So I don't see why a world champion at such as himself, and one that held his championship for so many years, shouldn't be honored by his hometown if that's what they want to do.
Why not? I mean, I think he's well deserving of it. He made many title defenses. He brought boxing back into that town because it was gone for a long while, and he represented them pretty well. He didn't. You never see him in the news on some negative things or anything like that. He represents that city, that state very well. He went to the Olympics. I mean, come on, there's guys that have gotten more and achieved less. So why doesn't he deserve it?
That's exactly right. I'm down for the bronze bomber to have a bronzed statue of himself, looking all muscular and everything. Yeah. Okay, and this artist, what was his name?
Caleb O'Connor.
Caleb O'Connor, shout out to him because he went all the way out with the likeness. I can see.
He forgot the tattoos though.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe they couldn't get the tattoos on. We got Danny and Al Bernstein together. That
was my old gym. That was my old gym.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in Ocala. Yeah.
Another question I did not get to ask Al was about his commentating team. How did he feel about being a part of such an amazing commentator team? And this isn't even all the commentators, right? You know, it's Steve Farwood and Gray and Marquez. Like they got like a huge commentator team that is the best that's out there right now, as far as all of the different, platforms and different people that's out here. I consider their team to be 100%, the creme of the creme. They're the best.
Well, you look at what they've done. They outlasted HBO. They outlasted everybody, so they're doing something right. They didn't bow out, right or wrong.
Yeah, you're right about that, Danny. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Right. We got Desmond. Desmond, shout out to you. He says, if you can give a fictional character Rocky a statue, Wilder is definitely good for one.
100%.
That's a good statement right there.
Yes.
Pete Rivera, that one. He made two statements here. He said that I think that Showtime is being careful about Victor Ortiz, feeling him out before they televise him for any future events, right?
Right. That's exactly what you said.
And then the other one here, he says, totally agree, guys. The town should definitely honor Deontay Wilder. It's well deserved. And I second that, because the truth of the matter is he's done a lot for that town,
Right. Absolutely. He's 100% right. Now let's go ahead and move on to some more subjects. I see both of you and myself included. We all agree that Benavidez would probably come away with the win against Lemieux. Lemieux has also not been in a fight, I don't think, in a minute. I haven't heard about him being in a fight. So I don't know if he's going to be in that type of road warrior shape. Now, this weekend, we're going to be at Bally Sports Intro Box and Box Labs event over in Orlando at the Caribe Royale. And that's going to also feature a special attraction fight between Sean Mason versus Perez.
The Untouchable.
The Untouchable.
Sean Mason.
And then we got some fights coming up in Atlanta. It's going to be the Summertime Brawl. You can check out for them as well. And then,
Alfredo Angulo?
Yeah, they got him on there, right?
Oh, man, I didn't know that guy was still fighting. That's pretty good. He's a tough fighter. That guy's a tough fighter.
Yeah. He really is. So that's going to be in the Atlanta area.
He beat Peter Quillen? Is that?
Yes. First time they had a draw, and then the second time he beat him. And also, of course, the tickets are ready, guys. It's going down. It's the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, T&K Boxing's Fight Night. And that's going to be June 17th. The full weekend of festivities is going to be the 17th through the 19th. You can go to T&K Boxing's page, which is TK Boxing promotions.com. And then you can also go to Eventbrite to get tickets if you're like one of these people that like electronic ticket buying. And of course, all of the fighters receive their actual tickets today. So you can get a ticket from Carice Brown, Fino, Lewis,
Okay.
Crosby, Jason Crosby, and the Plant City Gym also have some paper cards.
John 3:16, 17.
John 3:16 and 17. Tito Ocasio has Angel Ilaraza in his
Jose
camp.
Ocasio.
Jose. Yes. So you can get tickets from them as well. You also can go to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame if you would like to purchase the hotel, book the hotel for the weekend and also get your tickets. It's a ticket package that they have available for the full weekend of festivities. There's another option as well where you can call them up. You can call Mary, or you can call Bob or Steve from the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame and talk to them directly about getting sponsorships or being added to their booklet if you have a business. So we are full of activities right now. Oh, we also have the fight coming up in Miami, which is a Don King Promotions.
June 11th.
WBA heavyweight
June 11th?
championship.
Yeah, June 11th.
Okay.
I'm supposed to have one of my kids on the show. We're still working out the details.
Oh man!
Oh, wow. Awesome. Yeah, I love
Visa,
it.
Visa situation. So hopefully we'll be granted the visa for him to come in and fight. I got a 6'4" light heavyweight, undefeated, and hopefully he gets in the card. If not, Don always puts on good shows. I love his shows, and one of my mentors, Al Benani, is heading the event. And there's some good fights. There's going to be some good fights that day. Don puts on a good show.
Absolutely. We got a question from Nick.
What Nick say?
Well, Nick says, how do you guys feel about these YouTubers making a circus of boxing? And what's this about Black China exhibition match? Please explain why these are happening. Well, I'm going to explain to you real simple and very, very quickly. We were just at an event last weekend by Creator Clash, which was a bunch of social media influencers from multiple platforms fighting each other. They did have it for charity. Portions of the proceeds went to charity. And they only had 2 professional bouts on the card. There was not a seat available. It was sold out. Apparently 10,000 seats were sold out at the Euglin Center, which a regular boxing event cannot do a third of that. Mm-hmm. So this is what the people want to see. Yeah. This is happening because that is the bottom line is that's what people want to see. They want to see their favorite influencers fighting each other and not knowing a damn about boxing. But they did at least go to real boxing. Danny got the money ready. Yes.
That's what it's about. It's about money.
That's where the money is at. But they did go to different real coaches, boxing coaching and coaches' gyms to try to get as much, know-how as they could about the sport before entering it. And hopefully I know those gym coaches actually received a payday, which a lot of times they don't ever receive a payday from some of these real boxers. So someone did benefit from boxing, as well as the 4 opponents that were in the professional bouts. And shout out to all of those that participated in that. But that's a good answer.
Sakura, you know what is also doing? At first, I was kind of like put off by it, but the truth of the matter is, it is bringing another set of eyes to boxing that had never took interest upon it. You know what I mean? So I think in the long run, it'll all balance itself out. Boxers will get paid a little bit more money because it's bringing another set of eyes. People have never watched boxing or who don't have any interest in boxing are watching these influencers and being drawn to boxing now. So at the end of the day, kind of everybody wins. Everybody has a good time. If there are exhibitions and people are paying for it, who am I to tell you how to spend your money?
Right. I said it's happening because that's what the people want to see.
Especially if it can go in my pocket. I'm more than happy for that.
Yeah.
We're gonna have Danny on there, and we can feature Danny Santiago and another major boxer.
As long as it's like a food eating contest or something along those lines. I don't know. I don't know that I mean, you never say never, right? There's one person in particular that I would come out tomorrow for in the shape that I'm in right now, but that fight is, it was supposed to happen 3 times. If it didn't happen then, it's not going to happen now. But I just like the attention that it's bringing to boxing, because eventually it'll balance itself out. And then boxers, look, the money that these guys are making today are astronomical. There's an astronomical difference. So when I was fighting, and I've been retired now for whatever years, but at the peak of my career, I never made the money these guys are making for prelim bouts. You know what I mean? So the reality of it is that it's bringing another set of eyes. It's bringing another. Now we're in the streaming business, so now it's bringing streaming. Now it's bringing all these eyes and social media things. It really wasn't that big of a social media thing back then. So I don't knock it. I really don't. I mean, look, why hate on somebody who's making an honest living?
Absolutely. I mean,
just because I didn't think about it, I can't hate because I didn't think about it. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
You know what I like about it, Danny? The fans there are real dedicated, man. They fill the place up like after the first or second fight, man. It wasn't like a professional boxing match where you got to wait damn near all night and then people start coming in for the main event. These people
they want to see it all,
man. Yeah, they was in their seats like the first, second fight, and they was cheering, man. I mean, it wasn't all technical, but them guys put on, they put on a show and had some action. It wasn't real technical, but they gave the fans what they wanted to see.
I'm just hoping that it does translate, because I'm like, I'm kind of like one of those people that's like, but is it going to really translate to real? I mean, those same fans wanting to see someone that's not their influencer. So, I mean, the jury is still out on it. I think the more that they actually intermerse these fans with real boxers throughout their shows, the more possibility that we could transfer over some fans. But it cannot be a boring fight in which somebody is jabbing the entire 12 rounds, because they don't understand that. They would want you to be engaging and it be really competitive. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can't be one of those fights where we as boxing aficionados love the technical aspects and the sweet science of it. It would need to be some boxers in there that really know how to shake it up and really entertain,
Desmond got a comment.
Go ahead.
Desmond say they are not necessarily making a mockery. It's kind of a double-edged sword. Maybe the casual will start saying, let me watch the real thing. Yeah,
exactly. It's bringing another set of eyes, because what it's doing is these people don't normally watch boxing, right? And what happens is that these YouTubers or these influencers or whatever are getting involved in my business, right? And what they're doing is they're bringing another demographic into the game. Eventually, like anything else, look, I've never been a soccer fan. I've never played soccer. I've never watched a soccer game, but I live in Colombia. So this is a big soccer country. And you know what?
That's what they're enjoying.
I've watched it a time or two. Now I can appreciate when I see these guys do it. I wouldn't necessarily watch it, go to my house and watch a game, but if I'm with some people, I'll sit down and watch it, because I can appreciate it now that I've seen it from another set of eyes and seen it from another set of people, and now I understand it. So it's the same thing. I try to translate that to boxing, where these people who don't normally watch boxing, have never grown up on watching boxing or anything like that, are now watching it because they see these influencers. And eventually, I think like anything else, they're going to want to see the real thing and take interest in they'll probably still watch both, but I think they'll be more interested in the real thing, because wow, it sparks an interest in them. It lights a match.
Danny, I'm glad that they chose boxing. They could have did MMA with that whole thing.
Of course. But you want to know the truth of the matter when you look at MMA.
They wanted to protect themselves.
I had I have a couple of things. I have a couple of factual things when it comes to that, right? But I know the history of the UFC. I knew somebody literally like 25 or 30 years ago that was going to buy the UFC when it was going bankrupt, before Dana White's people came in, and he's kicking himself in the butt right now, right? But in saying that, I remember when it took off in its peak, and it was all this stuff on the ground with Royce Gracie and all these people. And eventually, what did they do after like a little 30 seconds on the floor? What do? They pick them up and they start throwing their hands. Because at the end of the day, boxing's the true essence of what people really want to see.
Yeah,
I mean, listen, it's good. You do a little arm bar, you do a little kick. But at the end of the day, what happens when you see these guys? They knock each other out with it. It's rare when it comes to a kick. It's usually a tap out or it's a knockout. You know, at the end of the day, it boils down to boxing. Boxing is the fruit of it all, you know. And you know, I don't think it would ever function in the UFC because who wants to see a whole bunch of people rolling around the floor?
Yeah, a lot of people are not with that, Daddy. They is not trying to see that happen. You know what I'm saying? I totally agree. I don't want to see two men on the floor wallowing and they got their faces all in each other crotches and stuff. Leave that for your bedroom. You know what I'm saying?
I've actually done mixed martial arts. You know, I've had the honor and privilege of training with some named guys. I won't have to throw name shots out there, but and I can appreciate it. I wrestled in high school a little bit, and I've done a little bit of everything. I've done Taekwondo, and I've even dabbled a little bit in the mixed martial arts just to try it. And you have to have a really strong core for that, right? But you know, the 2 times that I did it, I got up on my feet and I hit the guy and he fell down. You know, and it was a wrap. You know, but I can't appreciate it. But there's something about rolling around the floor with somebody. It gets boring after a while. You know, people don't want to see that. The referee they hear people boo and then they stand them up. So when it comes to this whole UFC and the whole these whole YouTubers and influencers, they know where the money's at, man. The money's in boxing. No matter what you say, no matter who says that this person ripped that person off, and at the end of the day, what it boils down to is money, and boxing runs the show.
Okay.
For sure. Now, I did have a quick point to make about soccer while you were on that subject. That a little known fact is that they actually have a lot of former soccer players that have CTE damage as well. So that's another reason to respect their sport a lot more. Like, it seemed like once I knew that, I started respecting their craft and everything a lot more. Because they're using their head to bounce the ball off all the time. And some of them have to, they have to really use a lot of head movement and strength. And it causes damage too.
It's the largest watched sport in the entire world. And the reality of it is that when you go to these countries that underprivileged countries, you could play this sport, play with one ball. You know, you don't need special equipment, you don't need pads, you don't need any of those things. So that's why, you know, it has so much popularity. But these kids are playing soccer, football, or boxing at a young age. Getting hit in the head for 20 years is going to have some damage. No matter what you do. I mean, basketball, they don't bounce it off their head. Baseball, they don't bounce it off their head. Volleyball, they don't bounce it off their head. But when you're getting hit on the head, whether it's a soccer ball or a football helmet or punch in the head, of course you're going to suffer from CTE.
Danny, we got a comment. How you said the name? Nick.
Nick and Robin.
Nick. He says, Danny trained me for a month, and I'll go knock someone out. I've been in the gym with you since 14, and I'm 39. Ha. You know him, Danny?
Yeah, that's actually my cousin. He lives out in I think he lives in Pennsylvania.
How do you say his name, Danny?
Yeah. He's a very good boxer. I mean, all my relatives, they used to come to the gym with me. I used to go run for about 2 hours. They used to go get on their bike, and I'm like 10 years older than all of them, right? Because I'm the oldest cousin. So I used to take them out, and they used to go ride with me on the bike for 2 hours, man. Literally, he'd go like 10 kids behind me riding the bike. But he used to go to the gym with me quite often, and he was really good. He's tall. He's about 6'2", 160 pounds. He played college ball. He played college football. But he was a very good boxer. But I never want anybody in my family becoming boxers, so I would take it to the gym and torture them and actually make them despise the gym so they wouldn't want to work out and become boxers, because although I loved it, it was a very hard life for me. And I didn't want them to go through that, you know?
Yeah. We see Peter. He says, "Laugh out loud." So true, Danny. You know, most fans watch hockey. Why? Because they love to see the fights. That was my grandmother. She used to love to watch hockey.
Anytime I watch hockey.
Yeah, she just wanted to see them fight. Get mad, and boy,
all those guys are missing teeth. All those soccer players have a missing tooth. That's like a criteria to become a hockey player.
Well, we got Desmond, and he says Shields crossed over from to MMA pretty well, but Conor couldn't successfully cross over to boxing.
He went to the main man though,
because it's a different discipline too. Though
jumped to the top.
Shields went off, and she got somebody maybe on her level, but Conor went all the way to the mountaintop. Yeah, that's an unfair comparison.
Very true, but at the same time, it's like it's a lot different when you're in there trying to master boxing skill versus MMA, and not to mention you just used to doing things a different way. The way if you've been at the top of your game at MMA for so long and you got your little tricks and different moves you make, it's kind of hard to like switch your brain off from that and then reprogram yourself for boxing later in your career.
Yes. Hey, we got a shout out from Coach Henson. That's my dude.
Sherman.
That's my man. He says, "What's up, people? Boxing Playhouse."
What's happening?
And then he says, Michelle says hi. What's up, guys? Michelle. Hey, we love you.
Sherman coming for the Hall of Fame, right?
Yes, Sherman is coming for the Hall of Fame in June. That's June 17th to the 19th. Lots of boxing legends in the house that night, including one day Santiago. And then we also
support. We got some very close friends of mine. We got my close friend Juan Ocasio. He's getting inducted as a coach. God bless him. Congratulations. We got my manager and my promoter Rusty and Russell Lancer. They really. You want to know something? When we started building Ocala and into a boxing, bringing boxing to Ocala, me, a guy named Artie Hubner, a guy named Earl Frazier, Rodney Giles, Tito Ocasio, we kind of like, planted the seed of boxing there, and for many years we all held it up at one time. But when the INTLs came in and got involved, man, let me tell you something. It went up to a whole other level. And from billboards to posters to, they had people like Iran Barkley, Saul Mambi, Meldrick Taylor, the names of Vinny Matalone fighting in Ocala, Florida, a little small, Horsetown, and Tito taking the torch, and he's doing what he's doing with boxing now because he's doing things over there, and I'm proud to say that I was a part of that. But if it wasn't for the INTLs, I don't think it would have reached the heights that it has been, that it's gotten to right now. So this Hall of Fame induction year, last year was special because I got my ring, right? But this year is going to be a little bit more sentimental for me because three individuals, and there's a few more, but three individuals that are near and dear to my heart are going to get inducted, and I'm going to be really proud to be a part of that.
Wow.
Well, that is true, but we do have some heavy hitters in 2022 Hall of Fame class for Florida. Well, we're talking about Shannon Briggs. We're talking about David Tua. We're talking about Frez Okendo. David Armstrong, Corey Spinks, and Randall Bailey.
Mr. KO. Ice Cold. Yes, ma'am.
This is a huge class to me. I'm very proud of the fact that we'll have like the last three of our classes there with the different participants, like Antonio Tarver Sr., you, Danny, Commando.
You want to see something? You want to hear something? I'm glad I'm not in this year because last year I got a little light on me. If I would have been in this year, I would have been in the back. Nobody would have even looked at me.
Don't say these things. They're not true.
Man, you see all these people, David Tua, Shannon Briggs, Armstrong. You got like murderers row. Listen, let alone Randall Bailey. Come on, Mr. KO.
Yes. Mr. KO. Okay. There's nothing wrong with this class, but you're going to make a great addition because the Florida Hall of Fame Vice President, Bob Alexander, has said they really need our other classes to make sure they participate.
Yeah.
This is what's going to make this Hall of Fame here in Florida one of the best in the country. And
they're gonna have to get rid of me.
We're doing a great job so far, but we want more.
And in order for me not to go, they have to give me an eviction notice. I'm gonna go as much as I can. You know? They have to give me an eviction notice. Or
they done made you look. They done gave you a ring, a whole ring out here.
Excuse me. I got VIP. I'm going in.
Hey, Danny, some of these dudes get their ring and don't come back.
They're lost, man. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna enjoy watching these people get their rings on, and I want to be a part of it as much as I can. If I'm alive and I don't have a prior arrangements, I'm gonna make sure I'm there. You know, man, real quick. This is one guy who's in the Hall of Fame, Sugar Baby Rojas, a fellow Colombian who I talked to. I'm not Colombian, but you know, I'm in his country, and he's always showing you guys love, man. So I'm gonna let you know, Sugar Baby Rojas.
Really? I like Sugar Baby.
Yeah, he's no joke.
I like him. Let's see. I want to thank him for that. And then we did have a comment. It was an actual question someone had about Spence and Crawford. So we definitely got to get to that. Nick, your cousin, he actually said, my question is, when you have the likes of Terrence Crawford, Spence, Davis, why the need of influences to grab the eye of others? These are big names that should speak for itself. Yeah, when they fight. The problem is when they fight. They want to lead up to it. They want a big lead in. Like they want to make the fans hunger for this mega fight. And so we're not seeing the best fighting the best anymore, but every few years. So that's the problem, is it leaves a huge gap for influencers and exhibitions and different things, MMA versus boxing events. So, I mean, it's partly boxers and their promoters' fault that there's this lane now available.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that just made me think about. You know, I remember when I was watching fights back in the day, I used to watch it on CBS, NBC, ESPN, USA, HBO, Showtime. There was even a channel back before your time. It was called WHT, and they used to show. It was a cable channel. You know, it was one of the first few. It was even before, I think, HBO. And
World of Sports, Danny.
I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly. You know, exactly. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right. So what happens is that now what's happening is that these networks, they see the light. They broadcast these things. So streaming, online, social media, and all these things have taken over. And a lot of the old school people don't really get into this stuff. They used to watch on the television. And these promoters are switching over to streaming and doing all these things. So it's kind of like a weird thing that's going on right now in the last decade or so with boxing, because the reality of things, look, if you would have told me this 20 years ago that HBO was going to be out of the business, I would have thought you're smoking something, right? Because they're the lead of sports, them and Showtime. But for them to foresee the future and understand that the demographic of things are changing and evolving into streaming services and the zone and all these things like that, it's one of those things that you have to look at these things, because these fighters are getting locked into networks or knocked into contracts. And this fight is with this other network, and this fight is with this network and this promoter, and they're just not making these fights because of this conflict of networks. Who's going to broadcast these fights? Who's going to get the pay-per-view rights? And it's so political when it comes to these things that it's a shame, because I remember when I used to put on the TV on the weekends and I should just watch the fight free on NBC or CBS or whatever it was back then, you know. And now, and I remember I used to like watching it, you know, USA's Tuesday night fights. Like, who put on shows on Tuesdays? But back in the day, nobody would ever dream of doing that now. But, you know, back 30 years ago, they were doing it, you know, and I used to watch Tuesday night fights on USA, and I used to watch Friday night fights on ESPN.
Friday night fights, baby. I used to love it.
And then once a month or twice a month, there'd be HBO fights, you know, and it was such a thing that everybody got up for and looked forward to. Now, hey, y'all, you know, I'll watch it on YouTube. They're gonna post it on YouTube or whatever. So it's
or like how we have to do sometimes is press record and watch it later, you know, because it's a conflict, because they got 5 fights on with different you know, distributions all in one night. That's what happened last weekend. I didn't get to see Ramirez fight, who is someone that I really like to see. They had Evander Holyfield and Kovalev and the Fernandez, the Vargas sons. Evan Holyfield, and then they had the Vargas brothers. All 3 of them fought on the same card. They were on the card with Kovalev over on Triller, which was an app. I couldn't see that
Floyd
one.
Almost had something.
Floyd Mayweather almost had a pay-per-view that happened over in Dubai that you could watch with Badu Jack and a couple of other females like Pursuit on it. There was MMA on. Like, it's too much competition, and we ended up watching the Showtime card, which was for the Undisputed.
You got to think about this. I remember when I first started boxing, and back in 1989, right? And I remember Tyson was making, and you hear a guy making $5 million, you know, a fight or whatever, you know. But these guys are making so much money. It's like robbing them of their hunger, because the need to fight, to support yourself and to provide for your family, you get it done in 1 fight or 2 fights. So the hunger's not there. Now you're just seeking, you're like attention seeking. You're like an attention whore, because you're doing it now because you want to get the most likes on your social media network situation.
Right.
You want to get, people are not thinking about the pay-per-view fights or making a fight for money. They just want to see how many views they get, because they're getting a paycheck off how many views they get off of this social network situation. You know what I mean? So things have changed so much that it's kind of like watered down boxing in the aspect of the television aspect of it, because you have all these social streaming services, you have these social network services, you have every channel and every person competing with each other to try to get a fight. UFC puts on a pay-per-view fight the same day as a boxing event, when they should just caddy it from one weekend to another so everybody could eat. But they rather just take from this guy and rob them from their viewers. So it's a weird situation, especially on the fighter aspect of it, because these guys are making so much money. There's no need to fight frequently. Listen, you would have told me this 30, 25 years ago that Tyson was going to retire after 2 losses or 1 loss or whatever. It would be crazy. But Deontay Wilder has no need to fight anymore, because at the end of the day, he etched his legacy, right? But he made so much money, the hunger's not there. He may be still going for that fame, but what he set out to do to secure his family and to secure a life for his daughter, who's in need or whatever, right, at the time that he was struggling with, right? He already accomplished that, right? So the truth of the matter is, there's no need for them to wake up every day. I remember this. A coach told me this, you know, and it was 2 of them. They said in different ways, but Luis Camacho, fellow Hall of Fame, on my coach, and a mentor to me, Al Banani, and a guy named Patrick Burns. 3 different individuals, same philosophy. A boxer that sleeps in silk drawers is not a hungry fighter. So that's what's going on. These guys, Crawford, awesome fighter. Spence, an incredible fighter. But they ain't in a rush to fight nobody, because you want to know something? They're getting paid a ridiculous amount of money to fight B fighters when they should be fighting A+ fighters. And those are the facts.
So money is influencing both influencers to fight as well as boxers not to fight as often. And that's why we always think of like this past generation is like, oh, they fought everybody and they fought so much often. It was because they needed to fight. They needed to pay, you know, they needed a payday to support their families. Now they don't have those restraints, and we're seeing the difference in the quality and the multitude of the fighting.
Look, fellow Hall of Famer. This is why I constantly mention his name. He must think like I'm a stalker or something, but he's just a great individual. Glenn Johnson, the Road Warrior. I remember when I was undefeated and we used to work with each other. We used to spar with each other. I wouldn't say he was my sparring partner, and I wouldn't say I was his sparring partner. We were just stable mates. We worked out in the same gym, Showtime Boxing down in Miami, and we used to spar with each other, right? But I remember, man, that he used to get up every day, go to work a really hard job. That's none of my business, put that out there, but just work his butt off, you know. And you know, he made it, you know, he was able to make a little mark. He kept trucking along. He beat a couple guys, became the world champion, and became a millionaire. And you know what that dude does? He gets up every day and goes to work, because that's just the nature of who he is. But nowadays, these kids want everything handed on the platter because they get paid so much money to fight nobodies. The hunger to fight the best is not there because they're getting paid good money now. And then these guys are making money off of social media. How many likes? Ryan Garcia, awesome fighter, good power. We talked about him earlier, but he's paying attention more how many likes he's getting on his Instagrams and all those things like that than he is about who's he going to be fighting next, because he's getting paid.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you broke it down so nicely. I mean, but you know, the only way to change that would be if they don't get paid as much. But then yet and still we have a lot of boxers that aren't getting paid that way at all. Like, that's the only thing. You got like an elite level that's getting paid like that, but then you got all these other boxers that's seen as, you know, the B side or the C side, or they are just like opponents.
There's no middle ground. There's no middle ground. You're either getting paid nothing or you're getting paid a lot.
Yes.
I know there's no middle ground.
Exactly. So I feel like the gap should close some so that you get paid based on, you know, more than just the fact that you have a big name and a big following. Like, you need to be recognizing that a lot of people are getting hit in the head for crumbs, you know, and people are fine with that. That's an issue for me, is that people are okay with that scenario.
Look, I'm telling you, quick little story, real quick. When I made my pro debut, right? I made my pro debut in Orlando, at the Orlando Marriott, right by the hospital, right by the airport. And Camacho Jr. was the main event, and I was an undercard fight. And the promoter didn't want to pay me any money. He's like, just sell some tickets. But at that time, you know, I had just moved to Florida recently, and I wasn't really well known. I think I sold like $1,000 in tickets or something, you know. I don't know what it was, but I made $200 for that. I made $250 for that fight because I made my purse and tickets, right?
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, I went out there, I knocked the kid out. It was like the greatest day of my life. I'll never forget it. I took all my friends to Church Street and bought $250 worth of pizza. And I was just waiting for the next fight, you know, because it wasn't about the money. It was about, it was about the money. Let's be honest. You know, no kid wants to become a fighter just to get a belt and make no money. They want to buy their mother a house. They want to do some things, you know. I never got the chance to pay my mother's house off. That's a big regret that I had, right? But the reality of it is, when I got into it, I wasn't thinking about I'm going to make $1,000 on this fight or $2,000. I just wanted the fight. I wanted the opportunity to start my career and start walking down my path. And I don't really see that nowadays. You know, I'm a trainer now, and I live in this country where kids come to the gym with no shoes. They have no shoes, you know, and some of them didn't even have mouthpieces. I was fortunate to get one of my old management team to donate a box of mouthpieces, right?
Right.
When I came here, I fell in love with the desire. Is something that I was missing, that was lacking with the people that I worked with in other places, right? And when I came in, I saw these kids, man, that, you know, just want the opportunity. You know, they're not thinking about millions of dollars. They just think about a few dollars just to eat. You know what I mean? Just to put food on the table and to become a champion, and whatever comes with it, right? And I just think that when we look at what's going on with boxing right now, and I think there's a lot of talented fighters out there, they don't want to fight each other first and foremost because they're afraid of losing. And I think that once you're afraid to lose, you're already lost because you don't take the attempt to win. Right. So they just want to keep getting paid to fight nobodies and be safe because they're afraid of losing. They're afraid of losing and getting their butt kicked. It's the same thing that goes on in society right now. People are shooting everybody because somebody said something or looked at them the wrong way, or they're afraid to get their butt kicked. So they take the shortcut out. And it translates into sports. It translates into boxing. I mean, I'm a big basketball fan. I see some things going on in basketball that I don't like. They get paid to do nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, guess what? You know, as usual, Sherman is being unagreeable. Sherman says, no, Danny, they just don't have the love of the sport. As the fighters of the past, it was not about the money.
Well, we agree on that part.
It's not as good as the past either, by the way.
we agree on that first part. I think every generation has a different set of skills and a different set of talent. You're right about the money aspect of it. That's what I was harping on that. But when it comes to the talent part of it, I think there's different levels of different views on talent.
Right.
I think these kids have their boxing acumen is a lot better when it comes to things with social media. They could study a lot better. They could look at the past and make some corrections. Back in the day, they had skill, but what they had was more heart. You know what I mean? And they had the will to wake up every day and do the things that instead of running on a treadmill and air conditioner, they were out on the road running in the snow, or running in 100-degree weather to lose weight instead of going into a sauna. So things have changed and evolved, and like anything else, you either adapt or die, right? But for sure, I mean, back in the day, there wasn't all these contraptions, and it was a pair of hands, a pair of gloves, a mouthpiece, and a heavy bag, and that's the truth.
You know what I like, Danny? I don't like how boxing has so many belts. I kind of like how the UFC got their thing structured, where it's like one champion, and everybody under one umbrella, and it makes the fights more easier to make. You got boxing, everybody always talking about, oh, you're on that wrong side of the street and all that. It just seems like it's hard to get fights made, man. And these guys make so much money, they want to fight twice a year. Then you got to wait to get a good fight. So
then when one little thing go wrong, and they can't fight, then it's like you're going on 2 years without this fight.
And that's what's doing for the YouTubers.
Yeah,
you're 100% right. But think about this, and it's a double-edged sword, right? 30 years ago, there weren't the amount of fighters that there are now, right? So if you have one champion and there's 50 top 10 guys, you don't have to defend this like every month or every weekend. You know what I mean? Because there's so many fighters. The amount of fighters now that there were 30 years ago is quadrupled. So I do think there's too many titles. I think that when I was coming up, there was basically 3 and then 4 titles: the WBC, the IBF, the WBA, and the WBL. That to me was like and really the top 3 were the WBC, WBA, and IBF, right? Yeah. But now you have the ABC, the ABF, you just have so many belts. I mean, some guys don't even know the alphabet, and they have these belts, and I just think it's really watered down. I think that they need to find a way to, because it's really all about these there's people that's running these organizations that never been punched in the face, which I have a really big qualm with. It's tough because there's a lot of money to be made. How do you tell somebody not to earn a living? Right. So I don't know, I don't know how to go about doing that. I don't have the intelligence to really figure that out. But I think that there are too many belts. There are too many champions. Back in the day, when I was a kid, hey, who's the heavyweight champion? It's Mike Tyson. That's when I remember it was. It was Larry Holmes or whatever. You know what I mean? It was one champion. There wasn't like 3 or 4 champions. Now you have you have Tyson Fury over here. You have this guy over there. You have all these sanctioning bodies suing each other because this person's the mandatory or that person's the mandatory. And it's just a cluster of just nonsense, and I love my sport. I'm studying it every day, and I'm trying to find a better way of doing things. Unfortunately, the people that run this business don't always have the best interest of the fighters. Right. They don't even have the best interest of the fans. All they care about is the money, and if we could all come together and figure something out, we need to implement some people in there who can't be bought and that can, stand on their own 2 feet with integrity and clean up the sport and do a few things to, you go on the average person on the street and you ask them who the champion of the world is, and they don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah, it was a while. A lot of people didn't realize that we had a U.S. champion with Deontay Wilder for quite some time. I'm talking about years. And I found myself telling a lot of people, like, no, we have a world champion. It's not overseas right now. We got a WBC champion. And I would mention his name and stuff. And they were like, oh, really? Oh, I had no idea, So, I mean, that's how much things have turned around since, Mike Tyson was a world champion. The world loved Mike Tyson. It's like totally different now.
I remember asking somebody who was the world champion. This was during the Klitschko era, and I asked somebody, "Do you know who the heavyweight champion is?" And they was talking about. They said Mike Tyson. That was during the Klitschko era.
Damn.
But that also translates to, that was like when the things were transitioning, that, you know, like I remember, I mean, I was like 14, 15 years old, and I remember watching you know, a local kid from Ocala, a local guy, Tom the Tank Sanders. He fought on I think it was CBS or whatever it was back then. And that was one of the last shows they did on that network. You know what I mean? When it was just on the mainstream, where any regular person without any, you know, pay-per-view channels could watch shows. It was just fighters with household names, you know, where everybody knew who it was. You know, Michael Spinks or Roberto Duran or Vinny Pazienza or whatever it was back in those days. Nowadays, you just don't know who's who. I'm gonna tell you the truth. You ask me who's the welterweight champ of the world, I might be able to name two. You know, the heavyweight champ of the world, I think, is Tyson Fury, and I don't know who the other guy is. And I'm a fighter, and I'm in this. I'm a coach, and I'm in this business. You know what I mean? So it's just it's a sad thing, but you know, who knows? Maybe it'll implode and fix itself. Who the hell knows?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of your points are right on time. They're spot on, because you actually have the experience of being on both sides of things now. You've been an active boxer. You know the politics. You know how much money was involved back then, and you can just see the difference now as you transition over into your trainer role. I mean, how trainers, just think how trainers get it treated, you know? I mean, some of them never get a payday from what they do, because they really, like Sherman said, they're the ones that, you know, actually have a passion for it. And they're not necessarily into it for the money, but you guys should definitely be getting paid. You're missing out on family occasions, trips and vacations. You're dividing your time from work to house, running the gas to get to the gym, different things like that. And then you got some of these people that actually make it to a certain level, and then the first thing they want to do is drop their trainer and go with somebody with a more popular name. Then you still don't get the payday. So I just 100%. Feel like that's not right.
100%. It's a conversation I had with my boy the other day. Like, we as trainers, we have to be. My coach used to tell me this, but he got paid pretty, you know, fairly decent, right? But you know, here I am. I'm paying my dues now, you know, and I'm underpaid, undervalued, and underappreciated. And I tell my kids, you know, when things are great, they say the fighter does great. When things go wrong, they get rid of the trainer. You know what I mean? And the trainer is the first one to be blamed, right? And in some cases, it's not deserved. You know, I'm the father, I'm the mother, I'm the guidance counselor. I bought my kid his first suit, you know, and he'll become the world champ. And God forbid someday he gets rid of me. He'll never remember that. He'll just live in the moment and not remember the person that they got him there. You know what I mean? So we talk about these things all the time. I talked to him about Sherman said something. He made a comment here, and I'm not going to read the comment, but I'll say something to that, Sherman. He said that I was never really given the right opportunity to become a world champion. I deserve to become the world. The reality of it is that I was given every opportunity. And the truth of the matter is that I train my kids all the time to be ready. And I got too comfortable at one time. I was 21, 22-0, and I thought that everything evolved around me. A fighter should always be in shape if you're a professional fighter. If you're, you know, I got a phone call to fight Antonio Tarver, and he's a professional fighter, and he was what he was because he was dedicated to his craft, right? When they called me up with a certain amount of time before the fight. I should have been ready, but I wasn't. I was a professional fighter. If I'm a professional fighter, this is my profession. I should always be within 10 pounds, 15 tops of my weight class. Well, I was 25 pounds over my weight class, right? Or 20, almost 30 pounds, you know. But whose fault is that? That's not Antonio Tarver's fault. That sure as hell is not Showtime. It's Danny Santiago's fault because I'm a professional fighter. So I take that onus on myself. I put the blame on myself. And Sherman, I appreciate the comment, but the reality of it is that I had every opportunity to become a world champion. and I dwindled them away because I was never really prepared. I tell these kids, don't train. I wasn't training to win a fight. I was training to get in shape for a fight. And there's a difference, you know what I mean? Because when you're training to win for a fight, you're already in shape and you're training to conquer your opponent, right? To be victorious. When you're training to get in shape, you're not focusing on opponent. You're not focusing on tactics. You're not focusing on what you need to better yourself to be the world champion. You're focusing on weight loss, which is a big problem that I had. Yeah, I had a big problem with it because I'm 5 foot nothing and I weigh 200 and nothing. So the reality of it is that, it was my fault. I'll end it there. I know we got to cut off pretty soon, but thank you, Coach. I appreciate that. But the truth is, it is what it is. It was my fault.
Shout out to Danny Santiago for telling the truth, putting them facts down, letting these boxers know you get plenty of opportunities if you just stay in shape and stay ready, regardless of whether or not they're telling you in the amount of time that they should be that you're going to be fighting this opponent. You got to just stay in shape. I mean, Ugas sticks out in my mind, although he did have a fight scheduled, he was already in shape so that when he got that last minute call to fight Pacquiao, he was able to focus on just beating Pacquiao. And I think that's what got him that win over Pacquiao. It's just already being in shape and being ready to focus on the new opponent. I mean, pretty amazing.
That's what Boots said after he won. He said Monday morning he was back in the gym.
Exactly. Xander Zayas is another one that says that too. Like, I won this fight, but hey, that's not the goal. I'm right back in the gym. So we're going to go ahead and close out the show. Emilio, your last thoughts on
I just want to say we appreciate Al Bernstein coming on, the legendary Showtime commentator, Danny Hall of Fame, Santiago. They go to Gold Cup. Put it up, Danny.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate Danny coming on, man. And hey, great show.
Danny.
Boxing PlayHouse #1, baby. See you next week.
Definitely appreciate you, Danny.
Absolutely. Next week, we're going to have Shannon Briggs on, baby, on Thursday night. And we're going to have Latin America on Wednesday night. And
let's go, champ.
Shannon's
my boy. Shannon's my dude. That's my dude.
And we're going to have David Armstrong as well. So
David Armstrong, I know him as well. He's awesome. He's an awesome fighter. I'll see you guys next week, baby.
All right, Danny.
All right. Thanks so much for everybody tuning in tonight. Al Bernstein, you're the best. And we'll see you next week on Boxing PlayHouse.
Welcome to the house, the one they talking about. Word of mouth. The Boxing PlayHouse, without a doubt. All the latest and greatest boxing news, that's what it's all about.